All right, it is 3:30, so we are going to get started. Let me begin by sharing my screen with you all. Do, 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 do. And then Kristen, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen? All right. And now I'm going to minimize all of your beautiful faces so that I can focus on what's on the screen. Okie doke. So welcome to our Educator Connection Live webinar series made with educators and caregivers like you in mind. My name is Mouna Algahaithi and I'm the Education Engagement Specialist with PBS Wisconsin. My role is heavy on community engagement, which takes many forms. It can look like hosting workshops around STEM with families and children, or delivering professional development training to educators just like you all around the state. I have another colleague who is on the call. Kristen, you can wave your hand. And I just wanted you all to know that over the next about 15-ish minutes, I'm going to share just a couple of the exciting resources that we have that are trustworthy, reliable, connected to standards, and completely free. All of our resources are always free. It's not just because of COVID-19. People have been asking about that. So the goals of this webinar is really essentially just to share our resources with you all, just because we have so many and not a lot of people know about what's out there. And PBS has always been about educational media, and we are delighted to be able to serve you in a way that will hopefully impact your teaching and make lesson planning for online classes so much easier. So the focus of this webinar is for early childhood educators, which we loosely categorize as teaching ages 2 through 8. And we'll be focusing specifically on STEM resources. Another small hope is that seeing all the cartoons brightens your days, just like it does mine. And yeah, so what I'll do is I'll spend the first 15 minutes just going over a couple of resources on PBS Learning Media. And then there's going to be a big chunk of time where you can ask us questions, me or my colleague Kristen, about what guidance do you need? What are you looking for? How can we offer you any support? So we'll have that time for you to explore, for you to go off-road. So just know that that is also coming. And I wanted to let you know that I created a handout for you all, and it's called the STEM Resource Handout. And you can access this handout by either typing in that short URL or opening up using the QR code on your tablet, on your phone. And I'll give you all a moment to open that up just so that you can see the different resources that I've collected for you. And just so you know, I'm not going to be able to get to all of those resources, but I thought so many of them are so important and I wanted to get them into your hands. So take a moment now to open that up. I'll show you what it looks like. This is what it looks like. And I see lots of you are here, which is great. And you'll notice that if you click on File and make a copy, you should be able to add this to your own drive, to add your own notes. We aren't, as I mentioned, we won't be going through every single one of these, but I wanted to put this together just so that you have a starting point for accessing some of these early learning tools. All right. There's also a shared Google Drive that I've put together, and the link is on that handout. And that Google Drive also has access to those printables too, so you can feel free to explore that during the off-road time. Alrighty, so before we begin, if you could please open up the chat box and just say your name, where do you teach, what subject do you teach? That would be really great so that I can know how to focus more of what I'll be talking about to make it even more relevant for you all. Just take a moment, open up the chat box. All right, Rebecca and Kelly, Dana, Jane, Lucy. Thank you. Stacy and Deb. Awesome. This is good to know. Okay, thank you, thank you. I'm gonna minimize the faces again, put this up here. All right, and like I mentioned before, a lot of you, the microphones are muted, but I can open those up in a little bit after the webinar. And I just wanted to let you know too that you will have access to this PowerPoint afterwards. I'll upload it onto that drive that I mentioned earlier in case you wanna share it with colleagues or rewatch it or whatnot. All right. So the way that we will access this content is by opening up pbslearningmedia.org, and then I'll encourage you to create a sign-in after the webinar portion of this, and then type into the search bar Ready to Learn, and that's how you'll be able to access a majority of the resources that I'm going to be showing you today. So let's see how we can get there. We'll start off on PBS Wisconsin Education's homepage, and this is what it looks like, pbswisconsineducation.org. And one thing I want to point out is that you'll notice a pretty banner up here, At Home Learning. And it's a really exciting initiative between PBS Wisconsin, Milwaukee PBS, and the Department of Public Instruction to bring at-home learning via a new television broadcast. And it's also streaming on this webpage as well. So I highly recommend afterwards checking this out to see what programs are being shown on television or that are streaming, and to find digital resources that correspond with that content. And there's also a link for this at-home learning on that PBS, on that STEM resource handout. So clicking on PBS Learning Media, this is an incredible tool that I call the Google for teachers, because it's just trustworthy, aligns with standards, and there's just so much to go off of. And I'm going to type in Ready to Learn. And at this point, you're probably like, okay, well, what is this Ready to Learn that she keeps talking about? And Ready to Learn is essentially, it's an initiative between the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, PBS, and local PBS stations to create educational media that's focused on STEM and literacy resources. And so when you are seeing certain video games today, episodes today, and resources, those are all created underneath this umbrella of the Ready to Learn project. So it's targeting students ages 2 through 8, and it's creating these STEM and literacy resources to ensure that students feel like they can be scientists, like they can think like engineers, and that they're really engaged in their learning. So those are just, that's an overview of the content that we'll create, that we'll be going through today. So you'll notice that in this Ready to Learn collection, there are 96 videos, there's a bunch of lesson plans, there's some interactives, some documents and media galleries, and it shows you too the ages that are available, that these resources are available for. So this is just a way, this metadata is just telling you what you can expect in each of these different collections. And so you'll see here these different series that we have: Molly of Denali, Ruff, ruffman, The Cat in the Hat, and Ready, Jet, Go. These were all created through the Ready to Learn program. So all of these have the science, inquiry, and engineering design process embedded throughout episodes, clips, games that are online, and a whole bunch of different curriculum or activities that are built for family engagement and family involvement, and are super hands-on and engaging. And then you'll see, as I mentioned, the different games, videos, educator resources, and out of school time resources, some family resources, and research that demonstrates the impact that this content has had on families and just how effective it is for creating a very holistic and engaging learning experience. So we are going to start off by looking at a resource by The Cat in the Hat. And The Cat in the Hat helps teach science and literacy informational tech skills to students who are 2 through 8, although I do recommend it for the younger ones, so I would say about 2 to 5. This specific collection includes lesson plans, videos, games, documents, and a media gallery. And some of the learning concepts that are included are tools and measurement, sound and pitch, structures, stability, sinking and floating, and simple machines. And the activity that I'm going to show you all today is called Whatever Floats Your Boat. And so it corresponds with an episode of The Cat in the Hat, knows a lot about that, called Whatever Floats Your Boat. And the activity is that children get to design a boat and they get to test it out on water. And you'll notice that the main lesson material for this activity is aluminum foil. And that's another thing that I think is incredible about Ready to Learn content is so many of the hands-on portion, the building portion, involves materials that are low cost and already at the home. So I don't know a single person who doesn't have aluminum foil in their home, and it's very cheap and able and accessible. And so the main idea is that students are going to be building a boat and noticing, well, when you change a certain variable, maybe the shape, maybe how much weight you're adding to it, how does that affect the boat's ability to float? How does the structure affect the boat's ability to float? And as I mentioned, that engineering design and science inquiry is embedded within this activity as well. And you'll notice that in the guide that I'm about to show you, you'll see new vocabulary words that you could introduce to your students, group discussion questions, and there's even a parent letter that you can show the parents to enable them to continue the learning at home with their child. So let's see how we find this guide that I'm mentioning. So we're looking back on this Ready to Learn webpage. We're going to go here and click on The Cat in the Hat knows a lot about that. And again, you can see already what to expect in this collection, and it'll tell you right here. And we'll scroll down. And here's the Whatever Floats Your Boat teacher guide. So we're going to click on this. And I'm actually going to show you a 1-minute clip to give you an idea of the way that the learning is involved in this activity. And so some context for this clip is that the children here are experimenting and they're thinking, well, maybe certain colors float. So maybe purple floats better than green does. So you get an idea.
Okay, let's try blue first. How about green? Yellow has to work. No. This is the last color. It's gotta float. What are we doing wrong? There's gotta be an answer. And it's right in front of our eyes. This is no time to fool around. We're trying to think. Look, some of the clay is floating. But we tried all those colors already. But we didn't try different shapes. Look, that flat piece floated for a second and then sank because the water came over the sides. But the one that is kind of curved is floating.
You might be onto something.
I wonder if that's why boats have sides, kind of like that, to keep the water out. What would happen if we made a bigger one?
There's only one way to find out.
So that just gives you an idea of how that learning is involved in even that episode. And so we'll click on the teacher guide just to give you an idea of what to expect. And this teacher guide is also linked in that STEM resource handout. So no worries about trying to download it now or anything like that. And the guide includes, again, a synopsis of what is this activity about? What are some of the learning goals? Right, knowing that children will be able to communicate new findings clearly, understand that shape can impact the ability of something to sink or float. It gives you ideas to invite your students to pick a treasure, right? And so maybe the treasure is pennies. And after the students build their boat, they're going to add their treasure to the boat and see will it still float. And this is an example of the engineering design process that I was mentioning that's embedded throughout so much Ready to Learn content, is it encourages children to define a problem. And so in this instant, they need to get off of the island, and so they need to create a boat to be able to get off of the island. Then it encourages students to imagine and plan, create, test, and improve. And so I really appreciate that graphic as a way of understanding how each of the activities are set up. You'll see here that the lesson materials are clearly written out, a bunch of different discussion questions for ways to get children activated with their learning, tracking results, controlling variables, and even a connection to the parent letter, which is linked right here. And those new vocabulary words as well are listed right here. So that was just the Cat in the Hat resource that I wanted to show you all today. And then we'll check out another really fun resource, which is Ready, Jet, Go. And Ready, Jet, Go is a way for students to learn about earth science, astronomy, and the engineering design process. And this series actually includes live action interstitials with an astronomer, which I think is really cool. And it was also created in production with NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab. So if you click on this link here afterwards, you'll be able to access the different games, the Ready, Jet, Go games on PBS Kids. And the activity I'm going to show you for this series is designing a Mars yard and a rover wheel. And so this one is connected to the episode Try and Try Again, and it encourages students to plan and create a model of the Mars surface, and then they're going to design and test a rover cylinder to explore force and motion. So let's see what that looks like here. So we'll just close this. And here's what Ready, Jet, Go is. And again, if you're looking for how to get there, we're starting on this main Ready to Learn page, and then clicking on Ready, Jet, Go. And we'll click on this first one, all about engineering and design, teacher guide. And down here is where you'll find all the supplemental materials that go with it. There's even additional activities like design a vessel, moving it. Here's the parent letter, because a lot of Ready to Learn content too, like I mentioned, is created to encourage family involvement. And so there's a lot of more resources listed on that letter to get parents involved in their child's learning. And so here is the connection document where students will be able to write out the connections that they're making while they're watching the episode, while they're planning on for their designing their Mars yard and building their rover wheel. And then the teacher guide, we'll just click view here. And it looks pretty similar to the last one for Cat in the Hat, and a description of the activity, what students will be able to do, planning and creating a model, reflecting, making predictions, analyzing data, information on how it connects to the 5E format of engage, explore, explain, extend, and evaluate. And you'll notice that they include the materials as they relate to each of those E's. And again, thinking of those low-cost materials or materials that might already be in the home, like crumpled paper or a paper towel roll, aluminum foil. And then you'll also see different teaching tips here, or things that you can say or questions you can even ask your students. And so this is just linked right here for the teacher guide. And there's a game that I think that goes really well with this, and it's the Rover Maker. And so you'll see how, oopsie, that's the rocket ship creator. Rover Maker, Ready, Jet, Go. And this will just help give you an idea of the way that the game is connected to that learning.
We'll start by building rovers on Earth before we head to another planet. On Earth, we'll learn how to propel a rover using gravity and motors. Your goal in each challenge is to create a rover that will carry Sunspot to the finish line. Your rover will start here, and if we build it right, it will end up here with me, Sydney, at the finish line. I went ahead and started this rover for you. You just need to attach Sunspot's cockpit to the rest of the rover. Tap and drag Sunspot's cockpit to move it. Move the cockpit next to the other blocks and it will snap onto the rover. Oh,
And so this is just that small example of how the game connects to the learning. And one thing too to think about is that as the game progresses, students are able to add different wheels and different types of materials to see how does that impact how quickly my rover is moving, or hey, my rover is stuck. How can I get it out of this? Because it's exploring the different surface of Mars. And so it's a really fun way to get students thinking about that. And the last resource I'm going to share with you all today is Ruffman. And Ruffman is a canine extraordinaire, and his series is inspired by YouTube. And so a lot of this series include actual videos of children talking to Ruff and asking him questions about different engineering experiments. And it includes digital games and real-world activities. And Ruffman really focuses on, again, the engineering design process, the value of failure, and science inquiry skills. And that link there will just link you to the different Ruffman games on PBS Kids. And this resource is kitchen chemistry. And so it's a way for you to encourage your children to think like a chemist, but in the kitchen. So students are going to be investigating matter, solids, and liquids. And so this teacher's guide comes with a video collection. So you can watch the different episodes with your students. You'll see different science words that you're able to teach. And you'll see different games that you're able to play as well with your students. So let's check out what that looks like on PBS Learning Media. And again, I'll start from the Ready to Learn web page. I'll click on Ruffman. And it'll be this first one here, Kitchen Chemistry with Ruff. And you'll see too on the side how there are already all of these different activities that go along with this teacher's guide for kitchen chemistry. So there's the Ruff's Cookie Creator game, there's a chocolate mug cake activity. And so if you click on here, you'll see an overview of what kitchen chemistry with Ruff is like, some background information, and ways that you can help your students develop understanding. So some questions you might encounter as your students work on this is, if you blend a solid food, is it still a solid? Can matter change from liquid to solid and back again? If you make food cold, does that uncook it? And here are a bunch of new science words too that kitchen chemistry helps teach students: temperature, liquid, heating. And it also talks about how, with the different episodes that are listed with kitchen chemistry, what are some different discussion prompts you can have with your students? And it also includes an ice challenge. And again, thinking about those low-cost materials, right? Thinking of how you can involve caregivers in their students' learning. This activity is an ice challenge. So all students need is ice, a timer, and a ruler, and it encourages them to identify 3 places where students think it might be cold enough to keep ice from melting, because Ruffman keeps waking up and he finds that his frozen popsicles are gone in the morning. And so students are encouraged to predict, observe, and then you all get to debrief together. And there's even a fun cookbook where students can add their own recipes and see Ruff's recipes. And I want to show you one of the games connected to this.
Ruff's Cookie Creator.
If you haven't already been inspired to bake more from being quarantined, maybe after playing this game you will be.
It's cookie time. We're making cookies. Let's make some cookies. After you make at least 2 cookies, you can start serving customers. Chet has helped us start by adding flour. You get to add the rest of the ingredients to make your cookie dough. Drag ingredients from the kitchen counter to the bowl. Make as many different cookies as you can. We will serve them to customers later.
So you can already start to imagine the way that
you need at least 1 of each before we can mix up the dough.
The way that students are able to do real learning.
The numbers on the recipe card change as you add ingredients. Salt. Tap Blossom to start mixing your cookie dough, or you can keep adding more ingredients.
I like to mess
Salt
around.
gives a cookie some flavor. What will happen when you mix the ingredients? Yeah, mixing it up. Da 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 da. What will happen when you cook the dough? Think about and choose how 20 minutes, 25 minutes. I'm hungry. Why do I have to wait? The dough got hot and turned into a cookie. Let's look at what you've made. This cookie feels very hard, doesn't taste sweet, and it looks golden.
Well, I'm
Let's
not a
save it to our
baker.
recipe book so we can make it the same way again. A creamy malark. Tap the arrows if you want to change the name. A dreamy rumpus.
That just gives you an idea, too, of ways children can start to think about mixtures and ways they can apply learning in the kitchen, in their own kitchens, after having this online experiment, too. And this is just another episode or a clip where Ruff is combining two different colors of ice cream and wondering, well, hey, how come I can't unmix this, right? So it's a way for students to get introduced to mixtures and the property of materials in a really fun and hands-on way. So those are just the 3 resources that I wanted to share with you. Ruff, Ruffman, Ready, Jet, Go, and the Cat in the Hat knows a lot about that, to give you an idea of some of the different resources that we have available on PBS Learning Media. And again, on the STEM resource handout, you're going to see a whole bunch more than I just mentioned. And I really encourage you to look through those different ones and see what are some of these ones that I can bring into my own classroom or encourage my students to participate in. So now I'm going to turn it over to you all, and this is a time where you can take time to explore the different resources. So here are some different ideas. You can look up a subject you're teaching using PBS Learning Media. You can explore some more of those ready to learn activities. You can check out the links on the STEM resource handout. Or in the chat box, feel free to ask us questions about our content or tell us how you're adapting the curriculum and what your needs are. We are here for you, and we are delighted to be able to support you during this very transitional time. So let us know what questions you have. How can we support you? And I'll stop sharing my screen now. Voila, I can see you all. So let's see, gallery view. Okay. I'm going to open up the chat box now. And yeah, feel free to look through those resources. If you have any questions, put them here. And I will send a follow-up email too that will include a link to this PowerPoint and some of the other ones that I mentioned. Thank you, Rebecca. I have unmuted you all in case anyone wants to ask a question out loud or anything like that too.
Yeah, I was just thinking, you know, you showing the baking game, that would be fun to kind of create like our own video so the kids could see us playing it and then like, you know, let's see if you can get your cookie to be less golden and sweeter or you know, something like that. Because that's what they watch on YouTube, a bunch of people playing video games all the time. So
yeah,
why not watch their teacher do it, you know?
Yeah, that's a really good idea. I like that.
Yeah.
And I love messing with it too, right? If I would have had more time, when I played this earlier, I put like 5 eggs and like 3 things of salt, and then and I baked it for 50 minutes. And Ruff is still so kind and understanding. He's like, okay, this cookie is burnt, not sweet, and very salty. And it's like, hey, that's how you get to learn and not make your caregivers upset by wasting too many ingredients because you're testing it out online and learning there.
Right. And plus, you know, not every kid has access to those materials in the kitchen. So that's giving an opportunity.
Absolutely. What else do you want to see from future webinars? Let's see, someone wrote your time and information.
Yeah, I'm just still interested in kindergarten through 2nd grade
Mhm.
materials. Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. I've already made a list of 15 different webinar topics, and then I'm like, I should probably get insight from what teachers want and not just create a list of things I want to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I like, you know, you already highlighted, you know, some of the specific lessons that we know went well, whatever floats your boat. So just your favorite lessons that are on there that we can grab and go. That
Yeah.
would be most useful.
And speaking of that grab and go, that's kind of why I created that handout to give you an idea. And it corresponds, I think the 3rd row on that handout, I can actually open it here. The 3rd row on this handout is a link to this shared Google Drive that I created, and it's open for all of you to use.
Okay.
And this is exactly those grab and go resources, right? So if you click on this ready to learn activity sheets, you'll see a bunch of different series here, right? And believe it or not, you guys, when I was preparing for this webinar, I actually planned on walking you through all of these resources, which would have been way too long. But, oh, I forgot my screen wasn't sharing, so you couldn't see. Hold on, I'll show you what it looks like. So this is the STEM and resource kind of grab and go Google Drive that you guys all have access to. And if you click on the ready to learn activity sheets, let's see, Ready, Jet, Go. That's one of the ones we just went through. Well, here's that Mars Yard teacher guide right here. Here are some planet fact cards, some moon landing games. So I wanted to just give you an idea of, hey, here are some activities that are already ready to go. And then there are also more online resources here that you can also just click on. So this one, Lucy, is 1st grade online learning resources, and it's divided by subject. And then, yeah, you're able to kind of go through those, and it'll list out the different resources that are available there. So let's see, where did everyone go? Okay, there we go. Anything else? Any other concerns that you're having with, you know, this transition to online teaching, resources you're interested in, that if you want me to do a walkthrough, I totally can. If you use any of our resources, please email me or share it on our social media so that we can see like your students. Thank you, Dana. Thank you for coming, Amanda.
Could you just tell us, Mouna, how you did get to the Ready to Learn page?
Absolutely.
I'm in the search, and it gives me like 2015 to 2015 to 2018, but not current.
I'll share my screen again.
Thanks.
Of course. So let's see. I will get to it from, let's see. So here's PBS Learning Media's homepage. And if you haven't created an account, you would just click over here, and that's where you would sign in or sign up. And then from the tab, you'll type in here, the search engine, Ready to Learn. And there's a ton of search results. And the cool thing about PBS Learning Media, for those who aren't familiar too, you can refine your search based on age. So maybe you just want kindergarten resources, or maybe you want pre-K through 4th. You're able to refine based on age, subject, and even resource type. So if you're looking specifically for a document, or you're looking specifically for lesson plans, you're able to really refine your search, and even using different languages as well. So just wanted to point that out. But this is right here is how you get to the ones I was showing you, was this Ready to Learn 2015-2020 initiative.
So you have to have an account in order to get to that.
No, you do not need to have an account. So
Okay,
even if
all
I'm signed out, and I'll sign out right here, you do not need an account to use PBS Learning Media. I think it's really, so you can see this is what it looks like when I'm not signed in. I think it's beneficial to have an account because I'll show you why. When I click on Ready to Learn 2015-2020 and I find that I love all of the resources here, I can add it to my favorite. So I can press this favorite thing, but I can't favorite it if I don't have an account. And so that's why it's really beneficial to have an account, is you can favorite it, you can add it right to your Google Classroom, you can assign it to your students. And if you want a more kind of in-depth walkthrough of PBS Learning Media and how to use it, then I highly recommend watching Kristen's webinar from last week, because that kind of walks you through that. And you can find that on pbswisconsineducation.org. Okay, I'll stop sharing again.
Thank you. That was helpful.
Good, good, I'm glad.
I think this question is probably going to answer itself, but if you have students that don't have access to computers, is there any kind of like hard copies of any of these, maybe a book or something that would be available? Or
Yeah, unfortunately not. A lot of the printable, what we've seen other school districts do and other public media stations who send out resources to families and teachers, is they take these printables and they download them, or they print them out, and then they send them to families like as packets. So that's one way that they do it. We have, there are a lot of families who are educators who are concerned about Wi-Fi access. And so what people have done then is a lot of the videos, for example, you're able to download them and they'll put them on a USB stick and also include that in the packet too, so that students can still take part in that digital learning as well.
Okay.
That adds on to that, you know, written or hard copy.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. It is so refreshing just to see other faces right now, everyone. Let me just say that. So I'm going to stay on the line until 3:30.
Hey,
And
Mouna, Kelly
Yeah.
has a question in the chat. No,
oh,
can you
okay.
see it?
Yes, I can see it now. Do families and students need to have physical resources to do the activities, or is it all online? It depends on the activity. So for example, the ruffman activity that I showed, if you were just going to show them the video and have them play Ruff's Cookie Creator as a way to supplement your lesson on mixtures, then they wouldn't need any physical resources. If you wanted to add to that activity and have kids make Play-Doh at home or make trail mix at home and discuss how come some things can be unmixed and others can't be, then that would require the physical materials. Then you'll see some of the activities like the Design a Rover, and that one does require those physical resources for them to actually be able to build and assemble that craft. So it just depends. But like I said, in PBS Learning Media, you can refine in your searches, and while you're going through things, you'll see the supplemental materials, and you'll be able to figure out, is this something my students would need a physical copy of, or can they do all of this online? And tons of it can be done online.